Tonight we have a work session. We've got, this is, if you recall, we started a facilities assessment this past year to look at all the town's municipal buildings for deficiencies, et cetera. And really the catalyst is that here in Town Hall, we're out of space. And in a lot of respects, Public Works is out of space, and we're storing tens of thousands of dollars of equipment outdoors and not protected, and it's really kind of created a long-term situation for us to look at. So I'll just kind of tee this up and lay it out. Kind of the agenda for this evening is we'll introduce ourselves in terms of who our consultants are, Wold Architects and Engineers. We'll get into a current facilities condition assessment, and I think that's where you'll see a lot of the deficiencies. We'll then have a conversation about what kind of we perceive as the space needs as we look forward. Real quickly, we kind of use the population growth in terms of looking at how the community is going to grow that we used for the water treatment plant master plan in terms of how we built that out. Same population estimates that we use there. Get into the concepts and the costs of what we're looking at, and then some recommendations as to how we might go forward. And there's a lot for us to do. So with that, we set up, working with Wold, a core planning group, and it was myself, Treasurer Tucker, Director Centeno, Director Lundin, and interim chief Gress came in kind of in the middle of it and jumped right in to help out with that piece of it. But we worked with Amy Laloney and Brian Hicks from Wold. Mason Micka, who's not here, was also part of that group. But that was our core planning group, and obviously all the work we've done to this point is now being brought to you, because that's kind of the next step in the process to get some feedback and really start having some discussions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Great. Thank you for having us here tonight. Again, I'm Amy Lalone with Wold Architects and Engineers, and Brian Hicks, also with Wold, and Mason Micka. If we could go forward in the presentation, and we'll go 2 slides forward here from what's on screen. We did a little here we go. We could just start here a little bit. Mr. Mann gave us the introduction of who was involved in the core planning group. A little bit about Wold. We are an architecture and engineering firm. We are Colorado-based. We're a national firm, but we have a Colorado team. We focus just on public sector facility planning. So everything from master plans and facility assessments to design additions, run models, and facility analysis. If we can go to the next slide. A little bit about the purpose of this study, again, was really to review and document the current facility condition, how the buildings are used. So we focused on this building and the Public Works site facilities. Look at just the conditions of the building and how the buildings and how they're used. Really, it's to help, it's to be a planning tool to enable decision making for future facility decisions, and help with budget development, and help with, what will you need in the future as the community grows and as the town grows, and what will the facilities need. So the process is very consensus-based. We did, and as we go through this presentation, we'll talk about our process as we're giving you the information about what we found. We'll go to the next slide. The first thing that we did in the beginning of the study is to develop planning criteria. This starts with a mission statement, which is to create a facilities plan that'll reflect the town's mission, values, and vision, and effectively meet the needs for the future. The core planning group crafted the guiding principles for this planning criteria, and I'm not going to read through everything here, but as you can see, there are this is community-centered facility decisions. to, create a sense of community and belonging, provide facilities that are modern and welcoming, and complement the existing town infrastructure and history. We wanted to think about, develop a plan that can move towards modernization of the town's facilities, meeting the functional needs, accommodating technology, and being able to adapt to the future. Being fiscally responsible in the plan. So the plan isn't fully crafted yet. We have several options that we've looked at, and we know that fiscal responsibility is going to be important in whatever solutions the town wants to proceed with. So we've done some cost analysis, and we've looked at some different options here, and you'll see that come through here.
I just want to interrupt for 1 sec. And so the slide that I'm looking at on the packet does not match what that says. It's like a duplicate. So just so you guys know, maybe if you could fix that for the home viewers.
They made some adjustments.
Okay.
Thank you. I will try to point that out in a few locations. There was, I think, 3 locations that there were some updates made, so thank you. Fiscal responsibility, and then the last kind of category here was incorporating best practices. So this is really trying to be aware of what are best practices for design and planning for future police facilities, for what's needed for municipal administration facilities and for public works. And so we are bringing information from other facilities that we're seeing nationwide to the core planning group to share that information so that can be considered as you're planning for the future. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So again, the planning criteria was something we started with early, and it's meant to be reviewed and thought about in the development of any of the options that we look at. We also, running parallel to, there were several activities that were running parallel. The facility condition assessment is another activity that our team was working on at the same time that we were meeting every 2 weeks with the core planning group. The condition assessment involved our team, architectural team, and the mechanical and electrical team walking every building, reviewing all the documentation, talking to staff members about what kinds of facility maintenance ongoing issues there are, condition concerns there are. And then we developed we have a facility condition report that documents every item on the 2 sites and puts a cost to address those items in that report. And those costs are just standalone costs, as if you were only going to address that one item. So it's a way to kind of get us a ballpark, an idea of the extent of the work. But depending on they're categorized, all of these items, by priority. There are some that are life safety, so they'd be higher priority, and they're also categorized by building system, so architectural envelope, building envelope items versus mechanical systems and electrical systems. So we can go forward, and I've got a slide for each of the each building that's really focused on. We're thinking of town hall as with one half of this building, and police as the other half of this building. And just at a high level, the topics or the things that we saw. Again, this building was built in 1982. The major items have to do with interior ADA accessibility and fire rating requirements not being, some of the wall separations, door separations don't meet current code. And those are probably the highest priority items. Everything else on this list below in that bullet point list is more of a condition, due to the age of the facility. So there's some window work, some south masonry veneer separation, the HVAC systems being beyond expected life. Electrical service panels are at near capacity, and lighting is all fluorescent without occupancy type of daylight sensors for efficiency. If we were to pull out the cost, when we pull out the cost, or identify the cost for just this portion of the building, it's at around $800,000, and that's everything on that condition analysis for this half of the town hall. Go to the next slide. The other portion of the building, the police side of the building, there are many, it's really all of the same condition apply in that side of the building. Because HVAC is all one system, electrical panels are all one system. The thing that really stuck out over there is that there is a need for more toilet room space by code. You're deficient for that. So the 295 is to address those items, and the chunk of the cost for addressing HVAC and electrical is carried in the town hall number, the previous slide. And then we can go to the next slide, the Public Works site. There's 10 different individual buildings over at the Public Works site, the main building being over 50 years old. ADA accessibility, and many of the building components are beyond their expected life. To address those individual items and in whole is around $660,000. So we do have a report that that documents all of these items in more detail, but that's the high level. And if you have questions, we can circle back to this, but we'll move on to the next slide. Another component of our facility analysis is to do some space needs identification and programming for what may be needed in the future. The programming is the word we use to describe the planning of the space needs. So it kind of comes down to square footage needs, adjacency needs. Those are all wrapped up together into what we call programming. In order to study to develop a program, we did interview staff. We walked every building. We documented how every building is used, what the spaces, how everyone's using space, where things are stored, what kinds of things are stored where, and we also, so that was sort of documenting what you have. We also developed space standards, so that was an exercise in looking at what is typical in a municipal building and a public works and police for the square footage for different kinds of functions. What's typical for a conference room space, an office space, for break areas, for evidence, for storage, and we. Looking at those space standards, then we identified the functional requirements that are really needed, how you function here, what's short here, what's not quite the size that it's needed, what's working well, and we developed a new space program, a square footage program for as a proposed future facility needs. I'm going to go through the next few slides to kind of explain this process a little bit more. We'll go to the next slide. So that first topic, and maybe I'll turn it back to you, Jim. That first topic was about how do you use the buildings now, what's working and what's not working.
So I just looking at and I'll just hit this on a high level standpoint. Right now, we have basically used every corner of this building, and we are out of office space. We don't have office space. Director Centeno is in, a coat closet. And we do not have the space for expanding out community development as we're going to end up expanding out. That's probably in the organization outside of within this building. That's probably our largest growth area in terms of where we're going to see employees into the future as park and recreation programs and events expand. We do better job on our planning side of things where we're able to react more quickly. It's going to require additional personnel, and we just don't have any place to put them. In the budget this year, we've got the assistant to the town manager, the GIS position. We're going to be putting them further upstairs, which is one of our bigger problems. We have an entirely un-ADA accessible building right now. My office is upstairs, well removed from the activity and being able to kind of keep an eye on things when there's shouting going on downstairs. Sound does travel, so I usually know when something's going on. But we're going to put people even further up. We have a rather disjointed file storage. You have to go to a variety of different rooms to get at files, and so it really is not laid out in a very good manner. This building was beautiful, I'm sure, when it was built in 1982, but it really did not consider that, 4 or 5 years later, they passed the Americans with Disabilities Act and changed the way buildings were built. I think one of our other big areas that we have problems, before I'm going to ask Director Centeno to make a couple comments, but one of our biggest problems is we do not have enough meeting space. We have one meeting room in this building. Everything else is just a gathering spot, and it's not a private meeting area. We are running into significant issues in terms of multiple meetings or events going on in a day, and we can't accommodate them. And so it has created a bit of an issue for us. And Director Centeno, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about your community development situation.
Yep, community development encompasses a lot of, it's a variety of different services that we offer the town citizens. And right now, we have storage upstairs, we have storage in the ambulance bay, we have storage at the town shop, the old town shop, we have storage in sheds. And so when we're trying to put together events or piece together where our recreation equipment is, it's all over the place. There's different things in different elements. And then when we bring it all to the actual office to put everything together and put ball bags together, and we end up setting up pop-up tables, and we have stuff everywhere. I mean, right now there's like 10 ball bags and equipment spread throughout that we're tripping on when we're trying to get back and forth to different sides of the office, whether it's the printer or trying to get to each other. And so I know in ComDev, we definitely we've outgrown the space that we have for the different elements that we offer the community.
And I would just add that we couldn't add another position in the front office if we wanted to. There's no space. We would not be able to house them. So that kind of takes us to the next slide, which is getting into PD. And before I turn it over to Chief Gress to talk a little bit about the space and how he sees the space, we have another significant problem with ADA in the police department. We have a toilet that is not ADA accessible. We have a stairwell that goes from this level up to where the PD is. We have an employee that is currently disabled that is very kind that she hasn't sued us because she's got to be able to go up and down those stairs, and much of the time she's in a wheelchair, so it doesn't happen. These are some of the issues that we've got. Then you get to the last piece of it is our evidence storage is up a non-compliant ADA uncompliant stairwell, I don't know, up in the rafters someplace. And so we have some serious, space issues in the police department. And as we get into kind of some of the solutions, I think you'll see from an office space perspective, PD needs the most room. And that's because when the PD was created, it was only a few officers, and now we have 10 sworn officers in an administrative position. There's no room up there. There's a lot of sharing of space, and they, again, done the best that we can do with the space that we have, but we're out of space. And Chief, I don't know if you've got any additional comments.
Those are all perfect points that's going on right now. The evidence and property room, as we grow as a community, crime follows, right? Because humans are human. There's a lot of retention that must take place. In a homicide, you have to keep it for 99 years. All the evidence that can be problematic when you have such a small evidence and property room. Knock on wood, we don't have a homicide. But in the retention and recruiting aspect of it, when you bring in applicants, one of our processes is the applicant comes in, rides along with a number of officers, and the officers have a lot of input with whoever, so they tour the PD. And to go up a flight of stairs, to not a professional looking evidence room. And I've had to convert evidence rooms before. That's one of the big aspects is the selling, right? The retention and recruiting, because it gets, if you have to interview a subject, whether it's a victim of a crime or a suspect of a crime, we just have a long table that's unsecured if you're not, if you're the suspect. And so there's safety issues there. We had 2 kind of violent juveniles back in November when I first got here. They were intoxicated and really cranky, and they had to be just in a table scenario. So to look forward into the next 20, 30 years as we grow as a community, obviously exponentially, the department needs to grow to match that, and we just don't have the space right now. We have 2 officers, or 2 of my sergeants share an office, and then the other officers just have cubicle areas. And I think through our meetings with Wold, we've really done a good job and you'll see how we're looking to the future to help the community.
I'll just add that the day we did the facility tour here, we were probably 30 to 40 minutes delayed in being able to do the tour because they were interviewing somebody for a sexual assault case. And if we walked through, we were now on video and we could be deposed. So it was just, I mean, this is the problem that we have with the space that we have.
That Nicole and I and the front office who was helping her do some special events is with a sexual assault with the guy with the gun. We seized the car to get a search warrant, so we had to put the car somewhere. And you always have to think like a defense attorney. So securing it in the garage, taping it off, and still having town employees accessing that, it's a bad perception, right? Because a defense attorney go, you didn't have it secure, you know.
It undermines your credibility in a
It can.
seriously.
And credibility in the police profession is everything.
So then kind of move over to Public Works, and again, done a remarkable job with a building that I think was here when the earth cooled. The Public Works crews have done and used the facility as much as it possibly can, but it's well past its usable life. We've cobbled together what we can cobble together in the facility. We're lacking some of the amenities that we should have. And I think one of our bigger issues is that we've got thousands of dollars of equipment that are sitting out in the elements that it's not always the best for them. So you'll see as we get in, now we get to pick on Public Works because they're getting the most square footage, but most of it's a garage. It's garage based, it's vehicle based. And with that, Joe, if you want to talk about the facility up there.
Well, you know, it's served its purpose through the years. I mean, we've been able to store a lot of equipment in there, but we're running out of room. And most of our equipment are mini X's. We use those in this time of year when something breaks. If you don't have it in a warm area, it won't start. And if you have to jump it or it just won't work, that just messes things up. But our office space right now, the supervisor's office is in the break room. So he don't have any privacy because everybody's in and out of that room. So we need to kind of separate people. And but we need to upgrade.
And again, a lot of it's meeting space. The Public Works crews need to hold safety meetings. They need to have conversations about what's going on, what the plans are, et cetera, and they really don't have a space to do that right now. So there's a same thing. It's a meeting space issue. So then that was kind of the walkthrough of our existing facilities and some of the things that we noted. Part of the process was, all right, what is out there in the world that we can go look at and see what they've done and where we're going to go. So we ended up as a group touring the Aspen City Hall, Rifle City Hall, Snowmass Town Hall and Police Station, Eagle Town Hall, Pitkin County Public Works, Eagle Public Works, and Avon Police. And you can see when these buildings were built and how much they cost, et cetera. Probably the one theme from all of our discussions with these various organizations and facilities that we toured was don't chintz on size. I think when you look at Aspen City Hall, that was the most recent constructed building. They're already out of space because they shrunk it. And so they're already having difficulties. The other aspect was storage. Got to have enough storage. That was a definite theme from the policing agencies, that property storage needs to be large enough, because you do get these cases where you're saving evidence forever. And, past the usable life of a building for the most part. So that was another key piece. I think, as we get into some of these discussions, some of our records retention, and I'm sure Sheila's now on alert in her office because I mentioned records retention, but some records we have to keep permanently in whatever, paper form, whatever, but there are a lot of records that we can digitize and do on a digital basis, so we can kind of reduce some of that storage footprint. But there are times where digital records get corrupted and we don't have, then we lose something. So there's a lot, it's a hard sell to give up paper sometimes. I try not to keep any paper, but when it comes to property records, et cetera, sometimes paper is the only way to look at it, especially, going back to old plans.
I have a
So,
question.
yeah,
Sorry. For this comparison chart, what is the number of staff in Silt of the town hall and police? I just didn't see a total number when I looked at this.
so the police department has 11 personnel, 10 sworn officers and 1 administrative. The rest of town hall is less than that. So right now you've got 4 in the front office. I make 5, Joe makes 6, and there currently are 3 in community development, which makes 9. As we did the tours, from a case study perspective, Eagle is probably the closest to what's happening in Silt right now. When Eagle built their town hall and police station, their population was about where Silt is today. They ended up building, 12,000 square feet. They're out of space already and are looking to build a new police station at the Public Works facility. Again, similar situation where, Eagle PD has a much more cohesive space, but again, they've maximized every inch of the space that they have, and there's just no additional room, and they continue to grow. So it's a problem. And the way the Eagle Town Hall and Police Station is built, it's part of a downtown city block. There isn't expansion ability for that facility. They're walled in. And so the only solution for them is to relocate police someplace else. And we've been trying to get a hold of Chief Bowman to see if they have an idea of the size of square footage that they're looking at. But that's the closest, I think, comparison. Back in 2000, Eagle was a small community, very small community, very similar to Silt, and they've had extreme or heavy growth pressure, which is the same thing that Silt is going to have going in the future. I mean, when you look at the fact that in some form or another, we're looking at roughly 1,500 additional housing units that are proposed in the community, that's more than doubling the size of the community, just in what people are proposing to us in one form or another. So that's what we're planning for. And so that's what made our touring of Eagle's facilities kind of very appropriate for Silt as it stands today. And I'd be happy if any of you would want to go up and run a tour. I'd be happy to drive up there with you and walk through their facilities. They'd be happy to show us again what they've got in terms of space. I mean, they very well, it's a beautiful building. It's in a city block, though it just can't be expanded. And, so one of the things that we're also looking at as we went through this process of, all right, we're going to do something, but what happens next? And how does that work? And is there room to do it, that we're not in a situation where this is a short-term kind of solution?
Snowmass has like half the population, and they built twice the building as Eagle, and so like.
Well,
why and how do
they get a
do
huge influx population, though.
that? Okay.
It's the
Best.
well, it's the
The
ski
3,000
resort.
is the
Yes.
population, but then there's the people that are there all the time that they're
Right,
basically
and
impacted.
I'd have to go back, I'd have to go look, but when you look at Snowmass, that 3,000 population is using a portion of the housing stock, but then you've got all the second homes or the unoccupied homes that boost that population at key times throughout the year.
Thank you.
They have other functions going on in that building. I know from meeting with them in it. Snowmass Tourism is in there. The chamber has sort of a satellite office out of there. So there are other use cases of the space that are different from what Silts would be.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, key concepts is don't chintz on the square footage, or make sure that you've got the ability to expand the square footage in the future, and don't chintz on the storage capabilities. So with that, I think I turn it back over to you.
Yep, okay. So we spent some time going out to tour to help inform us on, see what is out there, look at other example spaces here nearby. That helped to inform a conversation about what would be important to plan for a new town hall here, or future town hall facilities, future police facilities and public works. And so the next 3 slides are simply the planning concepts that the core group identified as being, important to think about as they're planning for the future. That the town hall components should be community-centered, that they should be modernized, providing, security should be thought about, flexibility should be thought about, and again, fiscally responsible. And so these are kind of a continuation of the planning criteria that the guiding principles that we talked about early. But we went through an exercise to just to make these statements here for town hall. And then the next slide, police planning concepts. It is important really to think about a police facility being that there's a community public interaction component to that facility, and so having a welcoming lobby and a place to talk to members of the community, to privacy for meeting with victims and the accused carefully, being carefully considered, security and controlled access to portions of the building is extremely important. Just having a building that functions well from an operational standpoint to make it easy to do the work and not have the building get in the way of doing the work. And then durability and the quality of the space from a employee standpoint, that it be able to withstand the test of time and be durable materials and be a good quality environment for staff. And then public works concepts. Really, for public works facilities, you want to think about the quality of the space for staff, support spaces for meeting with, doing trainings, having a space for pre-bid meetings to be held for projects. And then it's really, the biggest piece of it is about the vehicle, equipment, storage and maintenance and movement on the site. So a lot of thought needs to be given to having, clear traffic patterns for vehicles and safe paths for people, for pedestrians on site. Secure parking, having protected storage for expensive equipment. So those are the things to think about with planning for public works. Those were things that we kind of thought about as we're developing a space program, and the next slide here also contributed to the development of that space program, which is just identifying what sizes of offices are, should be planned for, and sizes of conference rooms, and what can fit into into different sizes of workstations. And so the group spent a little bit of time thinking about what's appropriate for different types of offices, and that information then went into our square footage program. So the next slide is a summary of a breakdown for each component: Town Hall, Police, and Public Works. On the left, I'll kind of start with Town Hall. On the left is just the kind of a breakdown of, in blue, the existing net square footage of each of those areas for Town Hall: public areas, offices, staff support areas, and building support. And then the total Town Hall portion of the building right now is at 7491 square foot number. After we toured other facilities and looked and spent time developing a detailed program, the proposed, what's needed for the future is about a 10,000 square foot facility for Town Hall. And you can see that most of the difference is in the public spaces. There's some in the office spaces, but it really has to do with meeting spaces, and I think that's the biggest kind of difference there with Town Hall. A little bit more office space and the need for meeting spaces. For police, you can see that the existing square footage, net square footage, or gross square footage, is that 1,970 is the amount of space that police has in the building right now. The proposed program is around 7,000 square feet. There currently is no public meeting or lobby or reception space for police, so that's in there. There's some additional work office space. The evidence and support and garage spaces where there's the biggest difference in what's being proposed, and then there's some increased staff support spaces for a break area. And then building support is, what goes into that building support is mechanical spaces, IT, restrooms, and it's really this is a scenario where police is thought of in the orange column as its own program. So if in the future police is combined with Town Hall, some of that square footage might adjust because there could be some shared mechanical spaces or a little bit of shared support spaces. But we're thinking of these as 3 individual programs for the sake of this programming exercise. And then Public Works, all of those buildings right now currently are around 9,000 square feet. And the proposed program is around 22,000. And most of that is with additional storage space. So this may seem like a lot of information and hard to kind of imagine what all of this could look like. So the next portion of our study was to really dive into how we might lay this out. What are some different options to actually to do this? We do have one. The next slide is about that case study of Eagle. And we thought that we put this slide in here because as we were evaluating the proposed program, and we were thinking, do we really need this much space in the future for Town Hall and Police? Does it really need to be this size? That's when we kind of dove back into looking at Eagle and thinking about how Eagle is similar population when they built those facilities. And we kind of used that as a check.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Eagle is very similar to where Silt is today. And when you look at when they built their facility in 2002, their population was 3,500. They've more than doubled that population in the 20 years since. We anticipate that the town of Silt is on a similar trajectory. And so when you look at, currently, our square footage is 19,000 square feet. You put everything together, the proposal is about 40,000 square feet. When Eagle built their facilities, they built for about 33,500 square feet. We're saying a little larger to hopefully avoid the situation that Eagle's in right now, where they're looking at, we need to build an entirely new police station because we're out of space. And again, a wonderful addition to their downtown, having their civic campus downtown or the town hall. But they're also then landlocked, and it's very difficult for them to do anything different without relocating departments elsewhere. And so that, as we get into some of the next slides, you'll see some of those differences of what we could and could not do on this site. But again, I think Eagle is a very good case study for us to look at as to what's going to happen in the future.
All right, so we'll move to the next slide. And then the next few slides are describing several options, several scenarios. I'll kind of go through these and then we'll summarize. One possibility that we looked at was keeping this existing building, remodeling it, and using it for the purpose of town hall and community development. To fit the proposed program into this building, it would require an addition. So this scenario has a renovation of this building plus an addition, and it would be all town hall function. And then police would be built at the south west corner of the site near Home and 6th, and in the place where the community building is now, that would be demolished, and the new police building would be built in that portion of the block. Now, we did dive in then, we'll go to the next slide, and for each of these scenarios, we did a test layout using the square footage program and considering the planning criteria and the best practices and the adjacency needs for how staff operate. We did a test layout. We worked on these for a few weeks during the planning process. In this scenario, the idea was to try to maintain the current, I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but it was to maintain the existing entry off of 7th and keep the main circulation hallway, try to minimize as much as we can maintain the building envelope and maintain as many walls as we can, but we have the administration area for town hall on the south side of this corridor where it is now, and community development on the north side where police is now. And then in the addition, there would be a new boardroom and break area and mechanical. And then there'd be another entry, kind of a public after hours on board meeting days and nights entry just to use the boardroom. So that's a scenario where this could be done. And then for the police on the next slide, new police facility, a layout for a new building, a simple kind of concept plan that has a public lobby, offices, open work area for patrol, includes evidence processing, evidence storage, and a locker room for officers, conference, and a 2-bay garage. And this, again, meets that program, that 9,000 square foot program that was identified in the earlier slide. And then so this is one scenario, and we'll do costs too. We did costs for all of these scenarios. We'll get to that in a moment. Another scenario that we looked at was the idea of replacing this building completely. What would it look like from a cost standpoint to do that? So new police building, same as the last option or last scenario, but building an all-new town hall and community development building with space for expansion on the north side of the site there, keeping the main entry towards the east. We can go to the next slide. We'll do the enlarged diagram of the town hall. So a concept that we developed was that you come in, from the east, public lobby, right off the public lobby is a board meeting room, public restrooms, and then straight ahead is service counter for both town hall and community development. Town hall functions are on the north side of the building, and community development functions are on the south side of the building. And there would be a garage and storage spaces to the west for community development
And
storage.
I'll just editorialize. The reason we kind of looked at okay, what happens if we were to tear down this building and start over? This building is designed with all sorts of angles and cuts and weird stuff that make it kind of difficult to reuse. We can do it.
Well, and also adding the ADA, getting the
Yeah.
upstairs compliant and whatnot may cost more than,
And so there's a certain efficiency, and we'll get to that when we get to the numbers, but there's a certain efficiency of just saying, all right, we're starting over.
And in the first, keeping the building, I did see stairs. Is there also a second level floor plan that you guys considered in that?
What we thought about with this plan, we considered there would be an option possibly of accessing the upper level, but to make it accessible, you'd need an elevator. And so the concept we developed was to keep that upper level as not used. It's an auxiliary storage space that's not meant to be used for offices. It's not really part of the program, and so in this scenario, we have no elevator planned, and we have a new ramp that would go in to connect the two
Got it.
areas
Thank you.
from the lobby. Yeah. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to another. The other piece of our planning was for Public Works, for planning that site. What we've developed, we talked about, the group talked about a few options of what could be done on this site. We need to consider all of the vehicles. So we did a really, on the left side of the slide is all of the, kind of the inventory of all the vehicles and graphically their sizes. Some vehicles can be stored out kind of in a cold storage situation. Some are needed to be stored indoors to keep them warm. So we kind of separated things to prioritize those. And the size of that central bubble there for new public works facilities, that is a portion of that 21,000. Over on the right side of the site, there's a covered storage that makes up a portion of the 21,000. And we're also continuing to use the Gold building. The Gold building is in pretty good shape. It's still functional. It doesn't have very many deficiencies, and so we're thinking that we'd be kind of changing the fence line to include it on the site, and include some parking inside the fence line for staff, and then there'd be public parking to the west. We go to the next slide, and we can see a concept layout, which is has an office area on the west side of the building. That's got a lobby, a conference room that can also be used as a break space, a small area for lockers for staff, washer dryer, restrooms, and then really the rest of there's 2 bays for maintenance, parts storage, tool storage, and then the remaining pretty much 2/3 of the building is heated indoor storage with pull-through bays. So if there's no questions, we'll go on to the next slide. Now, we're going to go back to this site because of the group. We wanted, we talked about for this site an option to do a renovation addition of this building and an option to completely replace the building. The core group thought it was important to also think about an option where, yes, police has a new building, but maybe we can do what we can to make this building work. Let's see what it would take if we were to do look for an economical way to remodel this building without adding on to it. What could kind of a more modest scale remodel look like? So this was the next. So really the site is very similar to today, but with police moving out of this building. And then the concept for this, keeping the building without adding on to it, but remodeling it. There's a couple of options here. One would be to have, the board municipal court functions move to the north side of the building with a new public lobby on that side that would just be used for public meeting events, for municipal court days and board meeting days. There'd be still town hall and ComDev day-to-day functions would be happening along this side of the building off of this main lobby hallway. There's some compromises here. There's not as much storage we're trying to maintain the restrooms for the public where they are now here in this, without a major renovation. The office spaces are a little bit less than what's the full program. But the core group thought this could be a possibility to consider. And then if we go to the next slide, there's an option 2 for a renovation that is a little bit more, it involves a little bit more invasive remodel work with restrooms. It moves the mechanical room, but it offers a little bit more connectedness. So you could just use your existing front entry and just have the main hallway as your circulation for the public. And you could go up a lift or stairs to get to the higher level where municipal court and boardroom would be located. And ComDev would be located on that upper level with a service counter from that space. So this one is probably would be a little more invasive and costly, but another option to consider. Then the next few slides that we have here in the presentation are about cost. Maybe I'll just pause before we get into that, just to see if there's any questions. If not, we'll just.
I don't really have any questions, but I have a comment. I do like the concept of having a separate entrance for the boardroom, because that could also double because if we're going to get rid of the community center, it would be nice to have a room, because the kitchen isn't used in that building anymore, but a room like that to where you could have it like in the town hall building, like the library does, where they have that separate room where it can be completely locked off from the rest of the building, so groups could use it after hours. So I really like that part of the concept, especially if we're going to lose space here. It would be nice to, replace it here, just because, it's an amenity that the citizens use. And my other thought is, the only way it's going to work is if we can get the church to sell us that property. And I don't know if that's even, because if they don't want to sell, then we're kind of really limited as to what.
We've had conversations with the church.
Yeah, so I'm just saying my thoughts. And then it looks like we're not really adding any new parking spaces, because typical of town code, if a new business builds a building, they're going to have to provide parking. So we shouldn't be any different, and we should add a few more spaces.
No.
Those are just my thoughts. and
We will be adding more spaces on the street.
Okay. And I guess my last comment is, I know some of these drawings say for future expansion, but at the same time, with costs, and like you just said, with Eagle and everything, it's almost better just to build the big building to start with. I know, it's cost. It's all going to boil down to cost. I get it.
I like your tune.
I like the idea of, planning for the ability to make incremental changes. So like Eagle's conundrum of being walled in, and they have this one giant building, and then it's like all or nothing. And, the symmetry is nice and everything, but it really, if we just had sort of a network of buildings that could then potentially be interchangeable and adjust, right? Like, that just, to me, seems a lot more, adaptable to future conditions. Just a thought.
I looked up some recent school expansions, and in those cases, in some instances, to save money in the near term, they built the shell of the much larger building, and then the use cases were TBD. So they didn't finish some of the interior space, but the envelope, the structure was built, because they didn't know what the use cases were going to be at the time. But they just set it up so that, hey, we can reframe the inside, we can make it classrooms, meeting rooms, detention rooms, whatever, police force rooms, whatever the use case may be. But I like that idea. I like the campus model. I've expressed that in prior discussions about this, but I think cost is going to be a critical issue. And maybe having that shell model where we don't know what the community's going to need in 25 years. If the shell's there, it can be repurposed as needed in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25.
and versatility and being able to break things down into smaller, more manageable parts, more affordable parts.
It's all going to be robots, so we just need a data center.
Well,
Go ahead, laugh. They all laughed.
I think I heard the computer laugh.
Yeah. My only question is, as we move to cost, Jim's already looking at me. Like we saw earlier pictures of an inside of I don't even know which town hall that was, where they have those really nice glass windows that fold up like a garage door that are 50 grand a piece. When we go through these cost models, are you giving us cost on that, or are we getting a nice little slide open window? Because I am a huge proponent of using taxpayers' dollars wisely, and teak on the walls, marble tile floors are not needed in these situations.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say that particular town hall is probably on the higher end of the finishes. What we are looking at is a little bit more modest than that particular example.
Okay.
Yeah, but
We had planned for Italian marble.
I'm sure, but
Sconces lying in the hallways.
I'm a
you don't
huge
feel like really
proponent of-
fancy finishes says soap.
And I believe all the light switches will be with remote daylight
Yes,
sensing.
I saw that earlier, the daylight sensors and all that
Is there an office for the concierge?
rigmarole stuff.
Yes, there will be a concierge too.
Yes. Even when you brought up schools, when you walk up to a school building and they have this big elaborate entrance that costs $100,000, that can be well used somewhere else for a better purpose. It's nice to have a facility where your staff is comfortable, the public's happy to come into, but there's a fine line when it's, it's not our dollars, so let's do it, but it is our dollars, so.
yeah.
I'm on board with that. I think the focus is on functionality, not aesthetics.
I mean, a 100 by 100 steel building with some walls framed out inside and a nice HVAC system, I'm good to go.
Well, and you had mentioned sensors, and I think, energy efficiency is something that we can, that's adds value, right? So, anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's be green where it's cost effective.
where it's cost effective. There's a point where that tips to
Absolutely.
not being cost effective. Okay,
All right.
let's see how much this is gonna
All
cost.
right,
so
we'll go into,
Jim
I'll
can
turn it
write
over
Would
to
you like
Ryan.
me to leave the room?
We need some.
Oh, no, we're going to want you to hear all
Oh.
this.
Oh, he's seen the numbers.
You're not allowed to leave the room.
Okay.
I'm going to walk us through the cost estimating portion of this presentation. We understand what you're saying. You're a municipality. You have to use the money wisely. We're not going to build you a Taj Mahal or anything like that. We also have a lot of experience building buildings for, towns like this, and we have a lot of experience in the market. We also worked with a third-party estimator that has a lot of local project knowledge to double-check some of the numbers that you're going to see here. So if you go to the next slide, I have a slide per option that we looked at earlier. So this is that first option where we're adding on to the town hall and get a new police station. So when we look at the town hall, we were estimating that kind of $5.6 million for the town hall addition and renovation. And we're then showing a 10% contingency on there. We want to give you a number that, if you were to go out to the voters and ask for a number, you're 100% confident that you can get the building done for that number. And that's where that contingency comes from. And then we have soft costs of 25%. It's a pretty industry standard number there. And that's going to account for, design fees, geotechnical engineering, like testing of the soils, and different things like that.
Furniture. is
Furniture,
included in that.
FF&E technology.
components, Yep.
Yep. And then we went out to a third-party estimator, and they came up with a number that was around 7.5 million compared to what we were showing of 7.7 there. So you're right in that 7.5, 7.7 range. For police, it was very similar. The cost per square foot for a police station is a little higher. The materials aren't fancier, but they're built to withstand 24/7 use, and it just ends up costing a little bit more to build a police station. But our total there was right around 8 million. and our third-party estimator actually went a little higher than us at 8.25. So then the total for this cost, or for this site proposal, is 15.7 and 15.8. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we've organized it the exact same, and really the only thing that's changed here is the town hall. You might be a little surprised that we've only gone up to, 19.2 or 19.6 million. And that is because the amount of renovation needed in this building is large. And there are large portions of this building, like the mechanical system, that would need to be fully replaced. The other thing you're seeing is with a new town hall, it could be designed so the layout was more efficient, so the overall square footage is less than the addition plus existing town hall.
I have a question.
Yes.
What if we were able to put this new town hall where the church is, and then this building could be like a center for the arts?
Well, I don't think the
Just
church
think
is
about
gonna
it and get back to
I don't think the church is like completely selling, I think
Right.
it's selling part of the building.
Just putting it out there. Okay.
My question was going to be about under the proposal for a new facility, would it be built so that a second story could be added for expansion, so that we could grow up instead of having to grow laterally? Going again back to your concern about the church land, if we can effectively double the square footage by going up, then we have more wiggle room, literally and figuratively, with the church or with however else this campus continues to evolve in 25 plus years.
We get that question a lot, because you're not alone in, having these kind of issues. It adds cost to the structural system of the building on day one, is one thing to consider. And then many times you have to think about like what program is going to be upstairs. So like when we were looking at the program today, so much of it is community focused that it's harder to say, okay, the community needs to go upstairs. And if that is the case, it needs to be planned for on day one, so that it's obvious that, okay, I go up these stairs or these elevators and then I'm at community development versus not. So yes, it's possible, but a lot of times we see it not being used in the future.
Or we see it being planned and then it's something that just gets cut because of the cost and the unknowns for how it will be used and how it would get used. So it's.
I'd also like to know the opportunity cost then
Yeah.
from the standpoint of, okay, we didn't do it, and now the community, long after we're all gone, the community now says, oh, we need to go up. Oh, but we've got to refit. And what is the opportunity cost of doing that then versus doing it now? Maybe it's an art center at the top or more community meeting spaces because the town center has gone away. Again, if it's a shell,
Yeah.
it can be repurposed over time for the evolution of use cases. If we don't build it, then it can't. And we end up like Eagle, who says, well, we can't go that way or that way, and we didn't build it to go that way.
Yeah.
Now they're really behind the eight ball, and maybe they had this discussion then and said, no, let's save some of that money now.
So are you proposing building the second story on day one? just
I'm
not
saying I'd
putting-
like to see an analysis of what the cost would
Yeah.
be, so that the first, if we go the new building route, if it's built sturdy enough, not pretty enough, that it could go up, what is the cost difference now? And then what are the time costs of that? And again, going back to the idea that we don't know the use cases, we shell it so that we can expand up more cheaply. Yes, it costs more now, but it's analogous to the dig once policy, right? You put all the stuff in when you're digging.
Well,
Otherwise, you're
construction
gonna
costs-
dig all over again.
Construction costs aren't going down. It's not gonna be cheaper to do
Exactly
it
right.
later.
And if we're
Yeah.
going to go through the cost and putting it in front of the voters to fund the new building, we should add some information to them that we're trying our very best to future-proof it and make sure that as the town's needs evolve, that the new structure will take that into account.
Yeah, so you're saying build the second floor, just have it vacant?
Or at least
Is-
have the
yeah.
capacity to.
Or the
Maybe that's a
capacity.
phase two in 5 to 8 years, not knowing how any of this is gonna land.
No, I'm-
But have
yeah.
have the level one structure capable of supporting a second story.
No, I agree. If we can afford it, because, Valley View Hospital had like an empty floor for years, and I think that Mortgage Commons in Glenwood had an empty floor for years, and I think even the Rifle Library, that upper floor. So, I mean, they've all found uses for them.
And we can definitely get you guys those numbers.
Thank you.
Any other questions on either of these two? Otherwise, we can go to the next slide. So this is kind of that option where we're looking at a more modest renovation to this structure, still assuming that police, their program needs are so great that they don't fit on here, they get a new building. In option 1, you're seeing a total number of 3 million. Option 2 is 3.85. The reason for the larger cost on option 2 is a little bit higher level of renovation. You can see on the bottom the restrooms move slightly in order to connect these two in the diagram on the right. The mechanical room ends up being relocated to the second floor in this option. And then there's a little bit heavier renovation of the garage driving those higher numbers in the second option. If we go to the next slide, Public Works. Similarly here, we broke out office building, heated storage, and covered storage separately because those get cheaper as you go down the line. And we're coming up with a total number around 12 million for this structure. As we kept going, we worked with the core group and we started discussing, if you go to the next slide, we started discussing phasing. We understand that these numbers are all very large and it's likely that they wouldn't all be built at the same time. So this slide is just kind of reminding us about the needs at each of these places. And as a group, we felt that police had the greatest needs from a programming and a deficiency standpoint. And if you remember when Amy was talking, the town hall number of 800,000, that includes replacing the mechanical system, which affects the police as well. So then if you go to the next slide, this is just one option of how this could be phased. And depending on discussion today, we could show other options here as well. But looking at the new police station first, for approximately that $8 million, and then you can either choose to do a new town hall, renovate the town hall, or you could do public works. Both of those needs were similar. And then if you go on to the next slide, we've done a very simple version of a schedule here. But if you started with your ballot issue planning and that passed, pre-design, selecting the A&E firm, getting your surveys and your geotechnical and all that, takes about 3 months. Design this is for the police station specifically, for a building of that scale takes about 9 months. And then our construction partners are saying, if you went CMGC for the delivery method, that's about 12 months. Furniture, equipment, and moving would overlap that. That's about a 6-month process. But the thing I want to point out here is if we started today, you would be moving into the police station in about 2 years. If you go to the next slide, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I think it's a question that we get a lot, so I wanted to address it. There are different project delivery methods that you guys could choose here. The big thing to note here is design, bid, build is the traditional one. That will slow the process down a little bit, and it also comes with less, or I guess it doesn't allow early design packages. So, and that's why it slows the whole thing down a little bit. So you end up, for example, if your mechanical units have a lead time of 9 months, under CMGC or Construction Manager at Risk, the one in the center here, you can purchase those earlier and shorten the duration of the construction process here. The other reason we bring this up is because there is a lot of projects going on around here right now, and especially up in the Roaring Fork Valley, and that's going to take some of your construction workers away, and we want to make sure that anything we're proposing is going to have the construction workers to bid at the prices that we're talking about here. I'm just going to leave it there, and then if you have any other questions on specific ones here, we can go through those.
Can I ask a question?
That's
Yeah.
Trustee Seifert.
This is Trustee Seifert.
Guys,
I don't see anywhere in there, and maybe I missed it, if we could do a complete tear down of City Hall, we're gonna have to have a temporary City Hall, you know what I'm saying? I'm just, what would be the plan for that, or would we rent it? I mean, there's gonna be a pretty good cost there someplace, or we have to have something.
Yeah, and the cost for temporary facilities is not currently included here. So if that were going to be part of the plan, we could help you with estimating that. It would probably involve modular unit of some kind, or if there are other facilities that are nearby that you can work out, an arrangement with another property owner to use their facility short-term, that we've seen that sometimes happen. But that could be part of the phasing plan too, and cost put together for that.
Is there any
Okay.
way to renovate the existing space or build the new space without displacing the workforce?
Not if the church stays.
Then it seems like we should know that, what those costs are going to be, because you're going to be displaced. It's not an if, it's a when.
We're all gonna work from home. Yep.
It's all gonna work out of the condo.
Yeah, we're gonna rent a modular. They
Summertime,
can all-
put up tents,
I'll get cozy for a couple of years.
hope for good weather.
If we did town hall first, then they could use the community center.
Oh, that's true.
Or some space.
But then where's the PD going?
PD's gonna be a tough one. I don't see how PD can work out of a modular either. And
I
be-
know.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Secure,
from, and I guess this gets to some of our, I mean, I think PD is the number one priority because they've got the largest need of functional space.
I agree, yeah.
I think, when you start then looking at the town hall functions versus public works, I personally would lean more towards public works because of the investment we have in equipment. But that doesn't, all these needs exist now. They're not necessarily independent from one another. And I have a hard time prioritizing public works over the town hall. I think we all would agree that PD is the priority, but then what's the second and third, and what can we do? And that was what led us to ask for that interim kind of step, like, okay, how can we cheaply, $3 million, $4 million isn't very cheap, but, repurpose this space in the short term, and that probably buys us 15 years. But then something next has to happen.
Yeah.
That sequence also minimizes the displacement, right? If PD gets moved to the new facility first, then as the other things are happening, the whole building's
Dependence,
being raised, then people
Yeah.
could work in what is currently and would formerly be the PD area during those times, if it were done. Granted, the renovation would probably take longer if we went that model, because it would have to accommodate those existing use cases.
It-
It would be loud.
it would be loud and very disruptive, and I'm not sure you get away from temporary office space.
And that's why I said
in-
minimize,
in
not
any-
remove.
In any scenario.
Yeah.
And so we get 15 more years of this building if we spend 4 million.
That's a serious swag.
Like maybe 15 years if we spend about $4 million.
Maybe.
If we spend $11 million, how much time does that give us?
We think that that's probably a 20, 30-year solution.
Okay. But then, but we could renovate this for 4 million and then put that new building potentially someplace else in the future if we needed to. And then still have this building
I think.
repurposable again. I'm big
Yeah,
on recycling.
programmatically, I think, we felt keeping the civic campus was important.
Right.
Having the library, having the police, having town hall basically in one location is really the ideal solution. Originally when we started looking at other sites throughout the town, but we really came to a general conclusion that it would be better to keep this as the civic campus. It's I would build it on Main Street if we had a space to build it on Main Street, because it draws people in and it brings people to your core businesses that, if they stop at Town Hall, maybe they stop for a cup of coffee. You know, so, I mean, there's a benefit to having your civic campus centrally located in the community, which it is right now. We're a little off the beaten path, but I certainly wouldn't necessarily want to move it over to First Street or, 16th, because it starts to move it away from where it really needs to be.
Carbondale used that campus model, and it's worked well for them, where they've got town hall and PD in one building, and then when they expanded and added the rec center, they just added that on the sort of the western side of that same campus. And of course, they've now got the theater across the street that's between them and Main Street. I know they're frustrated about Third Street Center because it's so far away, analogous to an art center.
Yeah.
But that campus model, I think they still have more room to expand as they need to provide additional services into the future.
And I just learned about that Colorado Mesa University example where they save so much money on utilities. It's crazy how efficient everything is because of the campus model. The geothermal network that they've developed is really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, in looking at some of those things, you do have to look at the cost benefit
Yeah.
of those types of installations.
So that's a whole other tangent, but it definitely enhanced my, the benefits of the campus model.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just from a liability standpoint, the PDs should probably be built first.
Yeah.
Just because the issues of keeping evidence in the garage bays and, little things like that, yeah.
I'm not sure that's a little thing.
Well, okay, big thing. But anyway, yeah, that's my point, yeah.
How does this get paid for? Or whether it's 4, 11, one of the total estimates is 32 million. Is it a bond? Are there upstream funding sources? Are there grants?
So how it gets paid for is taxes. There may be some limited grant funds available for a police station. There are no funds available for town halls, and there are no funds available for public works departments. Now, have a recession and the federal government decides they're going to spend boatloads of money, maybe there'd be some money out there for assisting us. That is also the worst time you want to increase taxes on your community. But how this gets paid for is either through sales taxes or property taxes. You might be able to do some spreading out of the dollars towards growth and development, adding an impact fee, collecting dollars from growth and development. Downside of that equation is that doesn't do anything to help affordability. Right now, when you think about the town of Silt and what it costs to get a single-family house approved, when you consider sewer tap fees, water tap fees, and all our impact fees, that's a dollar amount approaching probably, I don't know, what are we, about 35 now? $35,000, and you haven't even put a shovel in the ground. And if we're adding impact fees for a town hall or a police station, which I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but it makes that affordability question more difficult. But to answer, the bottom line answer to your question is that these are taxes and fees that are going to apply to the existing town residents and future town residents.
I have one quick question. Are infrastructure costs included in these? Like, because I would imagine both these buildings have to have fire sprinklers. And
Yes, all those included.
Lots to think about. There's no decisions that need to be made tonight. I think at this point, I mean, if there are other pieces of information that you'd like us to come up with, this is the time to bring them up, but we'll have more discussions on this later.
Yeah.
When you look at the timeline that Brian talked about, ballot initiative planning or ballot issue planning, there's our next one is this fall. I'm not sure we would be in a position to have done the work that we need to do to put a ballot initiative out there come this fall, because basically that means that this board has to have made a decision to go to the voters July. And then, final is adopted in August, and then you're off to the races until November. So, I mean, I am not an advocate that ballot initiatives should be special elections. They should just be general elections, because that's when you're getting your voters to come out. Could we do it? Could we get things in a position to where we're moving forward by the time the November election comes along? We might be able to do that, but it would take a rather significant effort. And then you get to the other aspect of that, which is once you get your dollars, then it's turning around and actually designing it and building it.
So what if we break that down into a smaller part and just focus like on the police station as an initiative? If we really feel like it needs to happen, and he's saying it's going to be, if we started today, it wouldn't even be functional till 2 years from now, then I don't know, maybe we should think about prioritizing that.
We
if
probably
that's
have
the
at
thing
least
we
a
need the
year
most.
planning. So, I mean, if we wait till 27 to do the ballot initiative, that's probably good timing.
But then we would be there until almost 30.
Yes, I know,
But
but
then
It's already not
gonna
enough
take
space.
some time to get this all.
And then
These
it's-
are, these
They're
numbers are
2026
2026 numbers.
And then
I
we're,
mean, if-
Yeah.
we're already maxed
So-
out. So at that point, we're like dangerously.
And that'd be the thing, is if you were to focus on just doing a new police building where the community center sits, and focus on getting the information and trying to have that on the ballot for possibly this fall, I could see would be the only, now doing everything all at once isn't gonna happen.
Right.
And then maybe once the PD is over there and out of this building, then there might be some ideas. But again, I see this building as being, because of, as you said, it was built weird. It was built,
It
made,
wasn't built weird, it just,
well, it has a lot of interesting
It's
corners
cool.
and twists and things that don't make it usable space. It's not efficient as it could be.
well, being built before ADA compliance,
Well, yeah.
that's what kind of screwed it over.
Well, I think one of our next steps is getting some of the additional information that you've asked for, but then we actually have to have a discussion of what the dollars look like. What does it look like to be able to fund a $30 million building program? Or what does it look like to do it in several phases? I think that's the next step of the information, is to start talking about that, and then the board gets to refine what it's looking at. And you might just say, I really don't want to talk about this anymore.
Well, and the bigger the number, aren't we the more likely to be rejected by the voters? Like if we give it to them and
I don't know, because I look at it as if you ask now for 8 million, we get that built, and then you're coming again, now we need
Another 8 million.
another 8 million, and then we need another
Yeah.
8 million. At some point, you say, no, I'm not voting for anything, because we're also gonna have the school district looking for tax increases during that time. You're gonna have.
There are
part of
going to be other ballot initiatives
fire
for tax
department,
increases.
so-
It's going to
But
be
this way we-
another.
And I guess my thought was that we could wait, we have the choice to say when we ask for that next 8 million, right? So we're not, doing it next year or whatever, you know what I mean? So that we feel like
Get
we're
a little
giving
bit
the
of-
voters a breather, was my thought, versus like just hitting them with $30 million all at once.
That also allows some economic development to happen, whether it's businesses, whether it's growth with housing, some of these things that are currently in the pipeline. Maybe we're realizing some of those that revenue from fees. The population is increasing. There's more of a sense of urgency amongst the citizens that, hey, we do need an expansion in town hall. Hey, we paid for PD, but now we need more public works functionality and improvements.
Maybe somebody will win the Powerball and they want their name on some buildings.
Right.
There you go.
Yes, they could be very generous.
I also think transparency around the funding source, right? Like a public safety funding source for a new facility, people know exactly what that's going to, versus asking for the entire amount. Well, is it as clear what those funds could be used to? So I do think it's a balancing act. You want to be transparent and you want to be, clear to the public what those funds are using. But, what's the best approach? So I do think if you could come back with some of those numbers, that would be helpful. as this moves along.
And we're going to be talking later this evening about possible changes within the police functionality and framework. So it's actually a really good time to look at that functionality in line with the new facility.
Yeah. Oh, I have a question. Is a garage really necessary on the new town hall?
For
Well, just then all these plans, it shows garage.
Yeah, that's how we are able to load event stuff in and out and load it the day before the event, keep it in the truck, keep it in a secure location. So that's why ComDev was like in all of the things we were trying to put ComDev adjacent to the garage so that we could use it for event purposes.
Okay, gotcha.
I can't park my car in front of her garage because she yells at me.
I get stuck and then it's his fault.
That's dedicated parking for
I was just
Nicole's
looking for a
car.
way
That
to save money right off the
says
bat.
ComDev parking.
Garage space is
Or
cheap.
designee.
Yeah, garage space
No,
is
that's
cheap
true.
compared to a lot of the other stuff.
No, I was just thinking, double doors is a lot cheaper than a big old garage door, but I mean, yeah. You're actually, yes, I wasn't thinking you're actually parking a vehicle in it. I was thinking it's just storage.
Just storage.
Yeah.
And then did we look at eliminating the gold building in Public Works and making it part of the new structure?
I
know we
think the
say
gold
it's-
building should
I know
go
we
away.
say it's good, but that building's been moved at least once.
Yes, it used to sit here. That building used to
It's a
sit here
museum,
before this building
effectively.
And it's, I mean, it's rough. It
was built.
It might be in usable shape, but I wouldn't say it's in good shape.
Yeah, but it's so awkward because the walls are like this. It's so awkward to store anything in there. So
Actually, you'd be surprised how efficiently they use that building on the inside.
Yeah.
It looks nicer on the inside than it does on the
Yeah.
Oh,
outside.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when we walked it, with our team, I think it's just in better condition than the other ones. And it's not an amazing condition to your point, but I think you could use this for the next 10 to 15 years and not put major investments in it beyond what we showed.
Yeah, it is a storage building.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
plumbing, there's no office
Right.
space in there. It's a storage.
And that's why, I
building.
mean, if you just extend or build the garage bays bigger, that building might last 10 years, but the cost to build that building in 10 years might be cheaper to build now as part of the new structure, plus then we can fence it straight, make a nicer entryway into the ball field.
Yeah, that's the number one reason I don't like it because you don't have a nice entrance into the ball field in the pavilion area because that's sore thumb right there.
Yeah, we can make that
That's just
adjustment.
me.
I know it's just more money, but if we're talking millions, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Well, then let's add some windows and some.
Let's not add windows. You would think I work for US General Steel, but I don't.
Sconces
Yeah.
on the outside.
Yeah.
Gargoyle
Some
quarters.
sconces, yeah. Put a yoga room in there, we'll be good. Okay.
Thank you very much.
you.
Everything looks great, so thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for all the hard work. and-
You are very welcome.
Really
And we
good
will-
information.
We'll continue to work with the core group and bring back more information.
Okay,
Perfect.
sounds good. Thank you
so
very much for being here
much.
tonight.
Thank you guys.